Hey everybody, welcome back to another build. My comments were flooded asking for this model, and thankfully I took the time to read all 2 of them. But I'm glad I looked into this set because I like ninjas and I like dragons, so it seemed like a combination of both of those worked out pretty well. And right off the bat, I was pretty excited to see this come with an exclusive poster. I've been wanting to put something over the fireplace, which now means I'll probably have to go out and purchase a fireplace. When assembling a ninja dragon, the first thing you need to do is construct a base. But you can't just have something plain and boring. I mean, maybe if you were putting together a plain and boring dragon, but thankfully, this is not going to be the case. Now, I've built a few dragons out of Lego before, but I've never had a dedicated build. It doesn't make me nervous, but it seems appropriate that we'll need to up the pizzazz level quite a bit. Which honestly isn't easy to do. The only thing I know is if I was putting together a waterfall for a dragon, I would want to make sure that I take the appropriate time and care. I don't have the first-hand experience, but I think we've all seen what they can do when they're not too happy. So I think we're safe to aim for at least 8 pizzazzes out of 10, which I think this shrine totally nails. Assembling the terrain around these waterfalls was quite relaxing and satisfying. I was pleasantly surprised to see all of this texture and depth. If you've never put together Lego terrain before, you have to make sure that you pay attention to every tiny element. It's kind of like putting together a miniature puzzle or a small sculpture. You kind of have to focus pretty hard and visualize what it'll look like when you're finished. As I put together some additional trimmings, I'm going to have to also add elevation to the terrain, which is a bit of foreshadowing in terms of how large this dragon is going to be. Because if I'm being honest with myself, if I'm going to spend my entire weekend putting together a dragon, it's going to have to be rather large. When it all boils down, you can't really use the excuse that you're assembling a 4-inch tall dragon to bail out of your long-term commitments. I mean, you can try as hard as you want, but it's not going to work. Not that I would know or anything like that. But I can say so far I'm pretty impressed with the visual design of this terrain. I've got to say I'm feeling pretty good about this living up to those pizzazzial expectations, which sometimes is all you can ask for. When assembling a large dragon, we're going to need to make sure that it's nice and sturdy. And to do that, we're going to need to use some anatomically incorrect wheels and rods. So I deeply apologize to all of the dragon purists out there. You may have ended up at the wrong channel, although that's not a bad idea for a side hustle. Maybe something to keep in my back pocket. If you can't tell what I'm putting together here, don't be alarmed, I'm in the same boat as you. But as we move forward, we start to see that this is indeed a dragon's leg. And it's another part of the assembly that has a surprising amount of texture and detail. To be honest, I'm just glad I can finally cross off applying dragon thigh plates off of my bucket list. However, I do have to take a moment to appreciate how cool these dragon claws are on the foot. They are excellent. Believe it or not, this right here is one of the most difficult parts of this build. It's one of those areas where you have to pay very close attention to what you're doing. And if you've seen my channel before, you know that I do that 100% of the time. To everyone's benefit, I had my full attention to this very important part. And I was quite excited to finish this piece while adding some color and dimension, especially considering that this is the key element to our structural integrity. And it's moments like these where we take our time to make sure that this does not fit at all, no matter how hard you try. It seems like this piece right here jumped onto the set incorrectly. But now that we gave it a thorough lesson in alignment, we can safely say that we're back on track. And fortunately, we gracefully walked the set away from its own self-destruction. I mean, it's good to be supportive. While we celebrate that small win and our Patreon members, I'm going to share something that you may not know about dragons. In ancient China, dragons weren't scary monsters. They were symbols of wisdom, power, and good fortune. People actually hope to see one of these in the clouds, which unfortunately makes Western dragons look like insecure lizards with anger issues. And now onto something a bit more spectacular, we have the dragon's tail. It's pointy and sharp and a bit flexible, pretty much everything you would expect to see at the end of a dragon, except for that obvious sword. If you're keeping score at home, that's minus 20 points to accuracy. You know, it's been a while since I've studied what a dragon looks like, and I don't remember seeing armor plates near the tail. But because I'm no expert, I think I'll let this one slide. The torso build for this model feels pretty good. It's a lot of stacked curves that slowly form a solid chest with green scales layered over a tan base. And right in the center, we have a tiny orange disc that gets buried under the scales. Almost like a hidden energy core or something ninja or dragon-like. I'm pretty terrible at lore, but it's subtle and kinda cool once you notice it. And the rest of the shaping feels clean even though a few of the angles don't line up perfectly. But at the end of the day, it is a dragon, not a tax form, so that's okay. We also have this fancy little emblem that clicks right into the orange disc. It's gold, a little spiky, and feels way more important than anything this size should be. It has a strong, look at me, I have a backstory vibe. The arm comes together in a way that feels familiar by this point with layered panels and angled slopes. And the shaping is solid, with pieces wrapping around to give it some bulk and weight. Along with the rest of the build, we have a nice mix of textures which keeps the build at a good pace without getting repetitive. 1,000 points to creativity. But I will say that the claws are the standout here. They're shiny, sharp, and just dramatic enough to feel like they belong on something that guards a shrine. So it seems like we're in luck. Connecting the arms is pretty quick. The ball joints pop right in and suddenly makes the dragon look more complete. It doesn't have much posing range, but the resting position does all the work anyway. And the wide armor plates drop over the top like the dragon is ready to stand guard for the next 1,000 years. Here we have the dragon's head, and honestly, it already looks intense before you even add anything. Like it knows something that you don't. The rest of this part comes together pretty quickly with the jaw, the mouthpiece, and the little beard underneath. It's got this confident, ancient look to it, which is totally what we're going for. Connecting the neck takes a few clicks, and then the head just drops right in. You adjust it a little, step back, and suddenly the whole thing feels alive, even though it's not really moving. It's not even blinking. It's just watching. Next up were the antlers. You definitely heard that correctly. Not something you usually see on a dragon, but I wasn't about to question it. They're huge, they curl back dramatically, and they clip onto the head like the dragon's been wearing them forever. I'm almost entirely sure that there's a reason for them. But at this point, I'm simply too afraid to ask. We have a few extra pieces that snap onto the shoulders, mostly for decoration. But they do add a nice layered look. Almost like shoulder armor if the dragon needed to look a little more official. It was now time to attach the final piece, which are these wings, and as expected, they're massive. It's the only realistic way this large dragon will be able to take flight, which is super important in case it ever needs to relocate from the shelf to a slightly higher shelf. Both of these wings are going to hold up a light green fabric. It's soft, kind of velvety, and way nicer than I expected. This is the point of the build that kind of feels like you're assembling a kite, which coincidentally was on my to-do list today. I might need to push that back. But I will say that the wings increase the intimidation factor by roughly 200%, which is a great thing for our dragon. This red structure goes together pretty quickly, but it stands out more than almost anything else on the base. It's shaped like a traditional torii gate, which gives the whole thing this calm, sacred vibe. And the color contrast helps anchor the shrine area without taking over the scene. It's just one of those builds that feels simple, but just feels right where it is. Plus, it makes it very clear that whatever lives here is not to be messed with, which yet again fits our theme very well. At this point, I started to hang these lanterns from these tree branches. They immediately gave the scene a quieter, more settled feel. This tree is not a big part of the build, but it pulls everything together and makes it feel more sacred. Then it was time to drop the tail on top of the branches, and somehow it holds, while fitting in and looking like it just belongs there. And of course, we couldn't forget about building Master Wu. Classic white robes, ninja fittings, calm expression. He basically looks like he has seen everything and isn't surprised by any of it. Even though it takes about 5 seconds to build him, he kinda sets the tone for the whole thing. Wise old guy, magical dragon, mysterious pond, it checks out. And then it was time to place the mysterious magical dragon sword and decide that the build was indeed perfect.